It is Saturday, April 25th, 2020. I just got home from my first round of trash picking this morning. Some guy gave me an entire trunk load of old fire extinguishers. Most of them are cast iron or steel, I guess. And some are stainless and a few are aluminum. It's probably only about 20 bucks worth of metal, but I'll take it. And then some other guy gave me this Mongoose Alta mountain bike. It's pretty crusty, but it's actually a decent bike. So I'm sure I could sell that for 15 or 20 bucks. I'm not sure that was good for my lawn, but it was a lot of fun. Let's just hope these don't get stolen before I can bring them to the scrapyard on Monday. Oh yeah, I also got an aluminum rim and 4 brake rotors. And some barbecue grill grates. And some wires. Right now we're in the Camry, headed to an undisclosed location in upstate New York to go trash picking. I can't really tell you where I'm going, but it's somewhere between Canada and Mexico and Connecticut and New Jersey and Pennsylvania, maybe. We'll get there soon and we'll do some trash picking. There's like the first pile of the day that I'm seeing, but it's just bags of clothes and soaked books that were in the rain for a week, so let's move on. Seem to be a lot of dead ends in this town. Like this one right here. This is a lovely little community, but I'm just not seeing a lot of trash piles around. Other than that big one we saw before. Maybe we'll find one up this hill. Oh, there's a pile on the side there. Nothing good, but at least that gives us hope. And actually right up here, it looks like there's a pretty big pile. Couple of pretty big piles. Little one on the left, big one on the right, and a real big one here. And they're all absolute crap. I don't think I've gone down this little hill yet. Whoa, no piles though. We finally found a pile, and this looks like it's got some... Oh, I spoke too soon. Somebody already took the grates out of it. There's 2 piles across the street here. They look pretty skeevy, but I'm gonna check inside this toolbox, see if there's anything in there. And there isn't. Sometimes I'll take toolboxes that are empty. Now right down over here, there are 2 boxes, and I know these boxes from experience. They're the kind of boxes that have struts and coil springs in them, but somebody already beat us to that, so they're empty. There's a pile on the left, but it sucks. This bird bath might be made out of metal though, so if it is, I'll take it. Nah, it's just made out of plastic. This pile has some cool shit in it. Motorcycle wheels. This pile wasn't here when I came by this morning, and it looks like there's some empty instrument cases from a trombone. Yeah, that one's empty too. But you always want to look inside these instrument cases just to see. Like this one's got some weight to it. It's a Bundy case, and the weight comes from the fact that it's soaking wet. Alright, move on to the next one. Now this is the kind of pile that isn't that great, but it does have a vacuum cleaner cord that I can cut if I can keep my hands on my cutters. These cords aren't worth much, but they're like 50 cents a pound, and that adds up after a while. So that's like a quarter, and you gotta look carefully because there's usually, not usually, but sometimes more than 1 cord. So there's 2 cords there. I always cut the plugs off the cords on the side of the road, but you gotta put them inside something so it doesn't make a mess. And there they are. It's probably $1 or $2 worth of cords right there. It's worth the trouble. The other thing that I don't think is worth the trouble are these blow mold Santa Claus guys. But a lot of people like them. And this one, it's faded, but I don't see any breaks or damage. So gonna take it, but you're gonna see why I don't like it. Because look how much room it takes in the car. Almost the whole back seat. Hope I can get a few bucks for that. Here's a big pile that's already been sitting around for a few days. I can tell that because the cord's been cut off of this floor cleaner. I just want to check out this bike to see if it's anything good. But it's really just a department store mongoose, so... Huh. You know, this might not be a department store mongoose because it's got a Dior crank arm on it. Let me pull it out and see. Maybe more easily said than done. So there it is. A department store mongoose with one Dior crank arm. Should I take it? I do have a crank puller in the car and I'm super tempted to take that crank arm, but somebody's gonna take this bike. It's kind of a low rent town. Somebody will take this bike, so I'll leave it for them. Now, this is why you have to keep your eyes open, because sometimes you find a decent bike in one of these piles. These bikes are all real crap, but this one kind of looked good from far away, but it turns out it's just a Huffy. So we'll move on to the next pile. This pile's a real judgment call, because there were 3 sinks and they all have faucets on them. And these faucets have some brass, but these are kind of cheap faucets that are mostly made of die-cast metal. In fact, this one's almost entirely plastic, and these other ones are these old cheap ones. So I don't think it's worth taking 5 or 10 minutes to take them off just to make like $1 in brass. But maybe if I'm desperate later I will. This pile is just filing cabinets. I'd zoom out a little bit, but I don't want them to see that I'm recording. But it's like a ton of filing cabinets. And here's one more cord. I didn't cut the plug off because there was nowhere to throw it in the pile. So I'll cut it off at home. So it looks like we found our first good bike of the day. This is a giant Sedona ST. I think this is a mountain bike, and you could tell it's in the garbage. You know, the tires are flat, the seat is all messed up, but these are really easy parts to replace. So this thing is going to be back on the road most likely within a week. So this is a good score. And if you're trash picking in a car and you don't have a hitch rack, why don't you have a hitch rack? Now there's some interesting stuff in the rest of this pile, but it's not really stuff for me. Like picture frames, if people want those, I don't. It's Tupperware. And then there's some pretty cool shelf brackets. I think I will snatch those up. See a little more about this giant. The derailleur's like really crusty. I'm not sure what's going on with this back wheel. It's got really thick spokes in it. It's almost like someone replaced it. So it needs a derailleur, maybe another derailleur, a chain, some cleaning, but it's a pretty good bike. This pile's just got a couch and a cord, and I'm gonna cut the cord. There's the cord collection so far. Not very impressive yet, is it? This is a lot of what trash picking is. Just driving around. It's not all glamorous and glorious. It's a lot of due diligence. Now, this pile right here has something that you might not notice, but it's a big plastic toy house that's been disassembled. This one's pretty rough. It's got some broken parts, but if you find these that are clean and they're not all faded and broken, they sell pretty easily on Craigslist for like $100. Now, I don't pick them up. I'm just here to take these 2 pieces of iron right here. But little kids' houses, they're not too bad to pick up if you have the room for them. Another thing about trash picking is sometimes you cross over into another town and they're not doing trash pickup that night. So that's where we are now. We've gone over the border into a different town. We got to turn around. And that's another thing when you're trash picking and you got to turn around. There's always a car behind you. Always. Always. This pile looks like it's been here all week. So I bet if there were grates in these grills, they're gone. But let's look anyway. Oh no. There you go. There are grates, and that is great. And I'll go scoop them up. Barbecue grills are really nasty, so I use a glove. And the reason I don't take the whole grill is because it's way too big and it's worth less than iron in the grates. These probably weigh about 20 pounds. So times 5 cents a pound, it's probably $1. But the entire grill, you know, what do you think that weighs right there? Like 100 pounds at 3 cents a pound? It's worth $3. That's not worth putting in the car. Look at all the disgusting schmutz on my fingers. It seems like we've done most of the town so far. I think I'm probably gonna stay for at least another few hours though. Here's one of my least favorite things to find, a sewing machine. It's like 20 something pounds of cast iron. Sometimes you can sell it as a sewing machine, but mostly it's just scrap. Some nice guy gave it to me. He's gonna give me some brake rotors. I'll show you those in a minute. This guy was great. He gave me the sewing machine, the rotors, and some copper. Brake rotors and copper to a scrapper are like crack to a crackhead. But you should definitely wear gloves when you're picking up brake rotors because sometimes they're filthy. I got a little excited back there though and didn't glove up. Now my hands are dirty. That's all right. This is a nice big pile right here. And we're gonna use my little magnet to check this pan to see if it's... Nope. It's not non-magnetic. How about this one? See, the magnet doesn't stick to that one. That's non-magnetic stainless steel. We'll take that. Here's this Hoover commercial vacuum with a big cord on it. I don't know how I feel about that. And then the train set. I don't know how I feel about that either. See, this is a big, heavy, bulky train set. Someone just leave it for somebody else. I don't really need it. So I did cut the cord. Some would say that ruins the vacuum, but most of those vacuums don't work. And if I don't cut the cord, someone else will. And these pans, they're non-magnetic stainless, so I think I could probably sell them as pans instead of just scrapping them, because they're only worth about $1 in scrap. We'll see. This is really the last thing that I wanted to find, was more blow molds that aren't really in great condition and that are big and bulky and take up all the space in my car. But sometimes when you're out trash picking, you find stuff that you really don't want, but you know it's worth some money. So I'm going to take these against my better judgment. This is not how I want my back seat to look at 1 in the afternoon. But luckily I'm only a few hundred miles away from home, so I can go back to Newburgh and drop these off if I really have to. This is something that happens all the time. I'm driving along and I think I see an extension cord, but it's just an old rope. And here's a steel leaf blower, but this thing's just in raggedy, broken condition, so I'm not going to take that either. Do you see what I see? It's a dryer cord. This is the fattest, most delicious kind of cord you can find. It's a little hard to remove, but you'll get through it. And then you cut the plug off. Try to do this one-handed, right? See, getting through the plug. Because they don't really like the plugs at the scrapyard. So, now you take the plug, a little piece of insulation, and you put it inside the dryer. And then you take your prize, this big, thick cord, and you run back to the Camry with it. Just makes those other cords look sad by comparison. This pile has some metal in it, but this is considered tin. It's a little too long, a little too lightweight, but I like these things. They're these jacks, so they're made of aluminum. I guess I'll take those. These are made by H&H Engineering of Battle Creek, Michigan. So I haven't quite filled it up like it was this morning with the fire extinguishers, but we're getting there. This pile really just has like some old boards and stuff in it and a car fender. But it does have a thing with a wire on the thing. So we will cut that. We can just don't leave that on the curb. Put that up there. You know, wires may seem inconsequential, but when you're not really finding anything else, you know, wires can add up. And sometimes when you're out picking, you start feeling like, you know, I'm too good to pick up wires. They're beneath me, but when you start getting into that mode, you're gonna miss a lot of cool stuff. So sometimes it's worth stopping, getting out of the car, and taking a peek. A peek, not a pee. This pile is a perfect example of how one thing leads to another. Because I pulled over after I saw these two brake rotors, but I didn't even notice this box, which has a whole lot of Romex wire in it, which is actually pretty impressive. And then there's this big wire on the back of this air conditioner, which I'm going to cut in a second. And what I also didn't notice hiding back there is a pressure washer that still has the cord on it. Those are pretty nice cords, but they're usually hard to get off. It's not like a vacuum cleaner. So we got the pressure washer cord, and we got the two brake rotors, and we got Romex and the air conditioner cord. And what I also noticed is a skeevy pile hopper driving by. You gotta be careful in these towns if you're out of pile. Sometimes people will jump right into the pile next to you. Gotta be careful. And for those of you who hate cord cutting, well, you're right. The lady just came out and told me that the AC is still good, it just needs to be washed. Oops. Here's a little side note. When you're driving through these neighborhoods, remember, you're in someone else's neighborhood. So if you see a sign that says, please slow down, slow down. Leadfoot. These old computer towers are worth like a couple bucks each at the scrapyard, but I don't really mess with them unless my car's empty, because they take a lot of space. But what I have been doing lately is taking the CPUs and RAM and other parts, see if I can sell it on eBay to someone who wants gold scrap. So this heatsink is a block of cast aluminum, but then under here you have the CPU, which you can pop out. And that's gold. Obviously it's not solid gold, it's gold plated, but there are people who will take these parts and reclaim the gold from them. And they're all different, so just be careful that you don't cut your fingers or something when you're trying to get the parts out of them. And I figure when I have about 10 pounds of CPUs and RAM sticks, I'll put it all on eBay and see if I can get $100 for it. Right now I'm parked on a hill, so I'm gonna put it in gear, pull the e-brake, turn the car off so that I can get some more vacuum cleaner cords. You know the drill. You don't have to watch, right? Normally I wouldn't have stopped at this pile because it's on a main road and I was headed the other direction. But this old Kent guitar, that's got to be worth 20 or 30 bucks on eBay at the very least. And there's a vacuum cleaner cord. Oh my god. Of course I really don't have room for the guitar on top of all the blow molds, but I guess I'll make it work. Want to make a bet if the grates are in here? 50 cents says that they're not. I'm gonna welch on that bet. I'm not paying every one of you 50 cents. That would add up to a lot of money, like 12 bucks. Those are real heavy ones. Too bad they're not non-magnetic stainless though. They're just cast iron. This pile has a cassette deck in it. Let's see if this is anything good. Nah, it's kind of messed up. Let's see what they were listening to though. Michael Bolton. Okay. This pile has a bowling ball, and it's a really cool looking one too, but it's a little bit broken. Otherwise I'd probably try and sell it. It's called the Cobra. But we also have brake rotors, and we love brake rotors. I guess they only replaced 3 rotors on the car. The other one must have still been good. And this is why you always got to be careful and look carefully. Look at this. It's an 8-foot long piece of copper pipe. Wow. Now to fit this in the trunk, you can hacksaw it, or use a tubing cutter, or just bend it like I'm gonna do. See, broke right in half. Couple more of those. Fits right in the trunk. That's a big piece of copper, but it's really lightweight, and copper is kind of down right now, but it's worth a few bucks, so I appreciate it. Ooh. Hey, how you doing?
You want a fishing pole?
Oh, no, thank you.
No?
Appreciate it. So here's the meat slicer. I really don't like meat slicers, but I'm gonna take it anyway. I can sell it or scrap it. So there it is in the car with the blow molds, the meat slicer. I don't like blow molds and I don't like meat slicers. But these people were very kind. Did you hear the guy? He offered me a fishing rod and then he offered me a TV. But I just took the slicer. But I will say there are too many blow molds in my car. Ugh, why did I pick them up? This is a water tank. And this is a brass fitting. And these are pieces of copper. And this is a 15-inch adjustable wrench. So the copper didn't want to know, but the brass came off really fast. Here's another water heater. Let's see how we do with this one. It took more effort than I thought it would, but it came off. Those two other pieces are brass, but I don't think I'm gonna go get the pipe wrench out to get those out. Okay, so I changed my mind. That's like 1 ounce of brass. It was fun to take off too. And this scrap load is getting bigger, which is surprising because there are quite a few scrappers out today. But I think maybe the reason that there aren't a lot of scrappers picking up a lot of scrap is because the local scrap yard, you know, up here by the Canadian border is closed. So I might be one of the only guys who is gonna be picking up a ton of stuff today. I mean, not literally a ton, but a bunch. Here's a pile that looks like it's full of just ordinary, real crappy furniture, but look what we got. A vacuum cleaner with a cord. I'll get it off camera. Looks good in there, doesn't it? Like spaghetti. Here's something kind of weird. These are the file cabinets from earlier. Someone took all the drawers out of them. It's interesting. Now, why would someone do that? Maybe to scrap them, or maybe because they want the file cabinets and they can't fit the cabinets in their truck. So they just take all the drawers and then no one else will take the cabinets. Either way, it's good to see that someone's taking them. I mean, I wouldn't take something that big that sells for 2 cents a pound, but they're pretty cool. And then right here, here's the pile where I didn't take the faucets earlier, but someone else did. Just reminds me I'm not alone out here. In fact, there's probably 24 people picking today. Ugh. The other good thing about picking up all this wire is that when this strap comes loose on the bike rack, I can secure it with wire. That's nice and tight. I haven't stopped at a pile in a while, but I wanted to show you this one. Because this is really nice wire. This is solid core copper wire, and it sells for a little bit more than the other wires. See, if you look in the end, you can see it's just one strand of wire in there. It's a solid piece of copper. So these are probably grounding wires from the people's house. There's a couple of pounds of it, so it's always pretty cool to find that. This stuff is a little bouncier, a little harder to roll up than the other wire, but it's definitely worth more. I'm not even in the same town anymore because I just crossed over the border, but I went up the side street to turn around and saw this really cool old satellite dish. That was basically cable TV 40 years ago. Here's another pile that's got some metal in it. This stuff is like half steel and half aluminum, so they call it dirty aluminum. It's really heavy too. Just barely fits in my trunk. Trunk is kind of overloaded right now. That's a good thing. And then let's see. Got this old drill. And these things are good because, oops, don't make a mess. These things are good because even if they don't work, you can just sell them as dirty aluminum and cut the cord off them too. So there it goes into the bowels of the trunk. It's a pretty good load. This next pile is kind of funny, and you see this from time to time. Some guy was trying to give me these printers earlier, and he was at a different house, different pile. So somebody picked them up, decided they didn't want them, and then dumped them here. It's kind of funny to me. I'm not really supposed to park where I just parked, but my rule of thumb is when you see a toolbox, check the toolbox. and I can feel that toolbox is empty. But there's some cords and stuff here, so I'll go get the wire cutters and cut them off. It wasn't much, but wire is wire. So this is the part of the night when things start getting a little dicey. Here's this heavy cast iron door off of some kind of furnace or wood stove, but is that gonna fit in the trunk? Yeah, I guess I had nothing to worry about. Here's some sort of water heater or something that I passed by earlier, but just now I was able to extract all this brass and copper off it. And there's some wire here too. I don't know, I guess the other scrappers went home. Oh, and let's not forget the dryer cord that's inside the dryer. So here's probably the coolest thing I've seen all day. It's George Washington in chalkware. Oops, no. I screwed up. It's Samuel Adams in chalkware. That's even goofier. And it's not chalkware. It's some kind of polycarbonate resin or something. So let's start this clip over. So here's definitely the coolest thing I've seen all day. It is Samuel Adams molded in some kind of weird polycarbonate resin. Samuel Adams, brewer, patriot, and grumpy looking dude. Should I take him? Does he want to go in with the blow molds? I think Samuel Adams is a little bit too frothed up, so we're gonna leave him here. Goodbye, Mr. Adams. Just like toolboxes, you always have to check guitar cases. They're almost always empty. But this one has a Magnum guitar in it. The Magnum. Ew. I think I saw a cool thing up here, so I turned around to go back and see if I really did see a cool thing. We'll check it out in a second. I don't know, what do you think? Is that a cool thing or not? Maybe. I think maybe after I clean it, it'll be cool. There's the rest of the fire extinguishers I didn't take earlier. Those are just tin, they're not really worth taking. So at this point, the sun's really starting to go down. The light is fading. I'm definitely gonna be out for an hour or two more, but I figured I'd wrap it up here and go over what we found so far. First, or maybe second, is the giant Sedona ST bike that's hanging off the back. It's not a bad bike. Then we have a car full of these blow molds of Santa Claus and his reindeer. Actually, two Santa Clauses. Here are the other ones in the back seat. I'm not sure if these were a wise choice, but we'll see. And it turns out they didn't take all the room in the car all day. I mean, I didn't need the room for anything else. Now, under the blow molds, you can see this Harley Davidson motorcycle wheel and tire, and there's another one in the trunk. I don't know if there's a big market for these, but, you know, maybe I'll get 20 bucks for them on Craigslist. Then there's that Polaroid sign, and I don't know if that's worth anything, but it's pretty neat. You know, maybe a flea market item. Hiding in here under Santa Claus is this meat slicer. It's not a real expensive high-end one, but it looks professional-ish. So maybe we can do something with that. Slice some bologna or something. Now, we just saw the guitar that's inside this case, so we don't need to see that again. We can definitely get a closer look at this Kent guitar. You know, this is one of these old Japanese guitars, and apparently in the 80s they were really popular, but I bet on eBay this thing would sell for about, I don't know, 30 bucks at least. I mean, it's in kind of rough shape. It's missing a couple of tuners and the nut is gone, but it probably works, and the knobs are there. Well, two of them are. Let's see how the back looks. Yeah, it's got some chips and a little bit of buckle rash, but it's an okay guitar, made in Japan. And finally, the thing that I'm most excited about, this trunk load of scrap metal. All different types of metal. You got wire, you got brass, copper, iron, brake rotors, dirty aluminum. This is a pretty impressive trunk load, if I do say so myself. So I guess we'll leave it at that, and I do appreciate you coming along. Maybe I'll make some more of these videos in the future, maybe not. Until then, thanks for watching.